price you pay to pursue your dreams. Grinding every day to get that dream. Ain't no holding back until you get your shot. One day you're gonna open your eyes and be on top. That's the price you pay to pursue your dreams. Grinding every day to get that dream. Ain't no holding back until you get your shot. One day you're gonna open your eyes and be on top. Been playing this game since I was 10 years of age. I wanted to make my mark ever since my Pop Warner days. When I strapped that helmet, I'm knocking dudes into a blaze. A lockdown corner going all the way through 7th and 8th grade. Entering high school, I'm ready to write another page. Busting my ass and lifting weights. It's a much higher level, but I'm still making plays. No time to party or bask in my glory days. It's college preparatory classes every single day. Living my life with that singular goal. It's the fire inside that makes me whole. Looking in the mirror, my muscles swole. I'm on a mission, and I'm never gonna stop. When the ball's in the air like Sherman, I'm a hawk. And I promise I'll overcome whatever life throws at me. Welcome to the Ageless Movement Podcast. I'm your co-host, Scott Lohman.
I'm Sang Poignac.
And what are we talking about this week, Sang?
Well, the month of May is known as Older Americans Month.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And that's not to be confused with Active Aging Week.
Correct.
So how's it different?
Basically, every year there is a theme, and this year's is the community of strength. And so the history of Older Americans Month dates back to 1963, when there were only 17 million Americans living who had reached their 65th birthday. So basically, under the Kennedy administration, he formally proclaimed the month of May, asking the nation that the entire nation pay tribute in some way to older persons in their communities. So less about them being active, just them being older in their communities.
Yeah, and there's a lot of issues with aging even back then. I'm not to change gears here, but the census basically indicated there was some real changes in demographics in America. I believe California lost 1 House seat, and I believe Texas gained 3.
Oh, most recently, yeah.
Yeah, and Arizona gained 1. It was just interesting kind of watching people react to that, because on the one hand, from a political perspective, a lot of Republicans got excited about it because they're getting 3 more House seats. But then, I listened to Sagar and Jetty say, who's Republican himself, say, this may not be a good thing, because a lot of those are Californians moving to Texas, and it could be that they're changing, the political dynamics of the state. And anyway, I'm just kind of mentioning that as a side note. What really came out of it that struck me was they're saying this is the lowest birth rates we've had since, I believe it was either the late 20s or the early 30s.
Well, that makes sense. I think a lot of countries are experiencing that right now too.
Well, Japan's been experiencing it for a long time.
But I think even China too.
Well, yeah, they tried. In China, they don't want you to have too many kids. They got, 1.6 billion people?
Right.
Yeah, that's tough. So anyway, it's going to create an unusual dilemma in America, because we're reaching a point, and one of the statistics that I read was in 2010, there was something like 6 million people, or excuse me, 6 million people that were over 60 years old. And they're saying by 2021, which is now, there's going to be 11 million additional people in America over the age of 60. And what they're worried about is the disproportionate amount of people that are going to be older and retiring and, collecting Social Security and Medicare, and not enough younger people to support the older people.
Correct. Yep.
So that's an interesting dynamic that we've been talking about. I mean, it's kind of an outlier. I know we were talking briefly about that when I was in grad school at San Francisco State in the early 2000s. But now it looks like we're here.
We made it.
Yeah. So I think it's more important than ever that older adults, do a lot to keep themselves as strong as possible and healthy as possible, because there may be limited resources in the future.
Yeah, but even with all these initiatives that we've read and we've even heard about, either with Gavin Newsom within our own state of California, but also the initiatives that Biden has been taking also to help these communities of aging adults.
Yeah, and it's there's just so many things that have been popping up lately that have kind of come into the mainstream of news. I remember Andrew Yang made himself famous as a political candidate because he was talking about a UBI. And interestingly enough, not far from where we live, saying in Tracy, in Stockton, they actually ran a study on a UBI, and I believe it was $600 a month?
I think it might be $500.
Yeah, okay, $500, somewhere around there. Anyway, they wanted to know if it would be effective in helping lift people out of poverty, and also would it have any negative impacts on the economy, so to speak? Would it encourage people not to work? Would it encourage people to buy, unnecessary things, even drugs or alcohol? And interestingly enough, they followed all the people that they gave the UBI to very closely, and they found some very stunning things. This is Mayor Tubbs who started this.
Yes.
He was the youngest mayor ever of Stockton.
How old was he? Do you remember?
I believe he was still in his 20s. He
Yeah.
was 26, I think.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, they found that what people actually bought with that UBI was food, clothing, shoes, stuff like that. And what I found really interesting in one particular case, there was a young African-American male who'd been working a minimum wage job for over a decade. And essentially, he would never be able to get a better job because he could never take a day off to interview at other jobs. And the reason is, if he missed a day of work, there's a good chance he wouldn't be able to afford rent. Well, that extra $500 a month gave him time to take off, which was, I believe, like once a week he would do job interviews. And he actually got a better job, a higher paying job, and his life is better as a result of it. So this was a complete success. And for many of you that kind of scoff at this concept of a UBI, realize Social Security in a lot of ways is a UBI. It's just a UBI for people over 65. And no one thinks that's a bad idea. Am I correct?
Correct.
I mean, a lot of Republican voters, overwhelmingly support Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah, and in fact, I think they're going to start rolling this out. I know San Francisco has talked about it, and specifically for certain communities such as artists. I'm trying to think who else that they were targeting, but basically people who have trouble having consistent income, and especially living in these cities where rent is super high, and it's just difficult to, I guess basically feel comfortable in their income when it's always fluctuating.
Yeah, that's very true. And interestingly enough, I guess we can segue to our next point here. There was an article by I can't remember. I'll call it Next Avenue. And basically they're talking about how Gavin Newsom has put together a master plan for aging in California. And basically, interestingly enough, front and center in all of it is housing costs and housing availability. And they were talking about how the average mean price of a house in the San Francisco Bay Area is $910,000. And in Los Angeles, the mean price of a house is, I believe it was $710,000, and the mean average price for a house in all of America is $310,000. And part of this master plan is they want to buy, old hotels that aren't being used anymore and renovate them for housing for homeless. And not just homeless, but also older adults. They can't afford housing on their own, that obviously would be healthy enough to still live independently.
Well, I know in our area in Redwood City, they've already purchased hotels specifically for people who've contracted COVID. So that could be basically a repurpose of all of those hotels.
Yeah,
motels.
that's a smart thing to do, because you don't want people walking around the streets and congregating with each other during a pandemic that have no place to go and obviously don't have access to hot water or sanitation. I think that's a really good idea. And there's been a lot of people complaining about homeless in Los Angeles. And I think this is a good solution. It's probably a lot cheaper to house them than it is just to let things spiral out of control.
Yeah.
But, and they are also talking about in the health plan for aging in California, they were also talking about building more homes in general to try to drive down the price. And I get it. If you increase the supply, you decrease the demand enough to where the price comes down. But I think that's only, a symptom of the problem. I think, when you look at the real estate industry, it is so under-regulated or not regulated. And it's like there's a lot of people at play here that sort of leverage the market upwards, so the cost of housing, the price of housing stays high. It's like a game. And there's so little regulation around it and so many people making money from it. I just don't know that you're ever going to be able to fix that problem, you know what I mean, without changing some structural, making some structural changes, I guess is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and also the other part of Gavin Newsom's plan, of course, housing was a huge part of it. The broken housing is, I think that's a problem that affects pretty much Californians of all ages, But also, providing, health care for older adults that need caregivers. I think that's another thing. Trying to find affordable caregivers. Because, not everyone can afford a caregiver. Especially if you're an older adult and you're just living on your Social Security and maybe you don't really have a pension. Or, even moreover yet, think about the perilous situation you get in if you are an older adult in your 80s and you never bought a house. You've been renting all these years.
Yeah.
And they're even talking about how Fresno and I'm trying to think what the other place was that went up. Fresno, I believe, went up 11%, and the rents did just this last year, which is hard to believe in a pandemic that rent would go up.
Because everybody moved there.
Oh, that's a good point, huh?
There was a lot of people left the Bay Area and basically went to Fresno, so it's not surprising that their rent would go up as a result.
Yeah, I think it was Bakersfield that went up too. I think 8%. That. Yeah. That's really crazy. So anyway, part of Newsom's plan is they're going to allocate $15 million for Alzheimer research and caregiver and provider training and an educational campaign of $17.5 million for senior nutrition as well. And that's another area, because how many seniors quit cooking?
Well, a lot of the seniors we work with can't even remember whether they ate for the day, so... Yeah,
that's pretty disturbing when they come to an exercise class and they haven't eaten breakfast, lunch, or had any water.
Right, that's the other one.
Yeah.
Not being hydrated. So, that's why they need caregivers. A lot of these people need caregivers, and I think... even the Biden administration has talked about those people who basically quit their job to take care of a loved one and no longer has income. What do those people do as a result? So trying to financially help those people who have left their jobs and then now are trying to take care of a family member or a friend or something like that. So
yeah, that's a tough situation. And then also, here's another interesting thing that I've always observed. So now one of the things that's part of California's health plan is increasing broadband access for older adults, and especially those living in rural areas. They were saying in the article 34% of Californians over 60 don't use the internet, according to the Master Plan for Aging report.
It's hard to believe, especially since, that was kind of one of the problems with getting vaccinated, too. A lot of them had to rely on other people in their family to get their appointments for them. So that's why vaccinating that population took a lot longer, because you're waiting for somebody to help you do it because they couldn't do it on their own.
Yeah, I was thinking of my father, right? I had to actually call his doctor's office because I guess they didn't notice an email.
Right.
And, oh my goodness, I had to tell them, my dad doesn't know what email is. He literally doesn't. And one of your clients, Dick, was the same way. They were emailing him, and he has an email account, but he doesn't really check it anymore. And so Benita, his ex-wife, had to call, just like I had to call, ironically, it was the same doctor's office. I'm not going to say who that was. But and you could just imagine all the benefits and just I would say avenues that seniors miss because they don't use the internet.
Yeah, but you know what? As much as we wanted to say it's a senior not using the internet, I'm going to say that the office not following up on something as urgent as this is a problem.
Yeah, I agree to that.
I mean, if you haven't heard from one of, your patients and they are qualified to get this vaccination, I mean, you need to assume a couple things. Either they didn't get it, and or if something has happened to them, it might be good for you to know that.
Yeah, that's a good point. They really do need to follow up on that stuff more. All right. So now the other thing we need to talk about is fitness, I would imagine.
Well, yes. So, I mean, being an older American, I think the other thing is, what is the definition of being older? And a lot of times I know for me, with a lot of people I work with, and I've even come across this with other coaches, they find that there are two different types of people or two types of older people who come to them. They're either the ones that are trying to defy their aging, which those are awesome. But then the other half is the half that have just, I'm old, I can't do that. So those are a little more difficult to get motivated in time. Some of them do great. In fact, I just got a new client this week, and I went over there, and he was so cute. He was telling me about all the things he used to do when he came to the center, and he was ready to come back. But, we're not open yet. So.
Yeah, you're talking about the senior center.
Yes.
Yeah, where we teach our classes, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say for the next few minutes, we're just basically, I'm going to talk about
Go ahead.
the people who inspire me in their older age. I mean, I would say even I had a client who was 92, and he made every effort to come in no matter what the situation was in his living space. And, elevator's broken, no problem. I'm getting there. Nothing really stopped him. And that's one thing to say about, I think, people who served in the World War. They are just so, and even in the Vietnam War, you'll find these people, same type of people too. They are so dedicated to their health, and they just come to their sessions and make it happen. They don't really have. I mean, he had a laundry list of reasons why he would be in pain, but I don't think I ever heard him complain of being in pain. The time we worked together. I mean, he just did whatever you asked him to do, and I think you have somebody now who's sort of the same way.
I have several people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky that way. I really don't have any lethargic clients anymore.
Yeah, well, I guess we all go through waves.
Yeah, that is true.
So I would say my number one person that I always think of when it comes to older adults who definitely value fitness. My first one is going to be Elaine Lelaine. So basically, Jack LaLanne's wife. Today in 2021, she is 95. It might be in May. I can't remember her birthday.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
Should we even talk about Jack LaLanne, who he is, or everyone just knows who Jack LaLanne is?
Oh, no,
right?
we should talk about who he is. Then it might make sense why she is the way she is.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Well, Jack LaLanne was, of course, people that are older than me are probably more familiar with Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne was basically the fitness guru, the first original fitness guru, really. Mm-hmm. He had his own show in the morning. I believe it was a couple times a day he had a show. Mm-hmm. And older adults could watch him. And not just older adults, everyone could watch him and emulate what he's doing and exercise along with him. Mm-hmm. And he also broke a lot of records and did a lot of crazy things. He dragged boats across the English Channel. He did a lot of feats of strength. I can't remember all of them, but one of them was he had two planes that were going different directions, and they strapped it to his arms, and somehow he was able to keep them from pulling forward. Yeah, and I don't know how much torque a plane can provide when it hasn't really started moving yet, but just the same. I mean, I'm sure the average person could not do that. And he lived a very long time. He lived deep into his 90s, and I think the only reason why he died was because he got pneumonia, and he didn't go into the hospital until it was too late. And because he started to develop respiratory issues, and and that's something pretty much everyone should do, because if you're having respiratory problems, it goes way beyond the normal cold. You should get in and get urgent care, and I think he waited too long. And that's what essentially killed him. It wasn't just the fact that he died of old age or his heart quit working. The guy was still really healthy.
Yeah, so the other thing that I think he is also known for is basically creating resistance training, and that it revolved around cables. So the whole cable system
that's true.
is his it's his idea, but other companies have run with the idea, but that's what I think he's most known for.
Yeah, that's true too. But I remember him talking about his story many years ago, and he said, I guess when he was a teenager, he realized he wasn't in very good health.
Yep.
And he decided he was never going to eat sugar again.
Oh.
And he never ate sugar.
Oh, wow.
Till he was an old man and almost 100 years old. But yeah, I forgot about the cables. That's a good point, Sam.
Yeah.
Cables are amazing. I use cables all the time on functional trainers. I train my back on them. I do a lot of shoulder work on them. Train triceps on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, I have a client who at this point would prefer to just train at home, but that is one aspect that is missing in his training. And for anybody who's training at home with just a couple sets of dumbbells, it's just not enough because of the vector of how you are pulling or pushing is it's just not enough unless you create some sort of system in order to work out in your home. And I have yet to see anybody working out at least with me, using different vectors. I mean, because nobody has really invested in, some sort of door pulley or what have you. I've had to just put people down on the ground because there's really no other way.
Yeah, no, it's true. I've seen one of the things that I think is really cool is the Techno Gym wall, but it's not affordable for the average person. It's probably $15,000, the whole setup. But, a lot of gyms that are higher end have them, and it's neat because they move so many different directions, and you could do pulling and pushing. You can even do stuff where there's lateral movement with pulling and pushing on them, and you could pull them from the ground. You can keep them up high when you're squatting, and have resistance when you go up. They're really pretty amazing. But they're all based on Jack LaLanne's original system of using cables. That's true.
Yeah. The only place I've ever seen that Techno Gym is inside the Apple Gym.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Apple Gym. Somebody else had them. I think it was Crunch had it.
Okay.
Crunch
could see
Fitness,
that.
I think, had it, and which is surprising because the rest of that gym was kind of okay.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But back to Elaine Lillane. Like I've actually, she was a keynote speaker and actually gives out an award every year at Ideas annual conference, and I watched her throughout the weekend. People had taken pictures and put them onto social media where they ran into her. So she travels on her, I mean, she looks like she travels on her own. I watched her go up on the stage on the crickety, if you ever go to one of these places, the stairs that they use to have you walk up to the stage, like you can literally hear it creaking as she's walking, and she's just going up it like it's no big deal. She's not even using the handrail to pull herself up, which is usually what we see people in their 90s do in order to go up the stairs. She went up it like it was no big deal. She didn't have any walking device, and I can't even say how many times we've seen people in their 90s who need a walking device but choose not to use it. And she went up the stairs like it was no big deal. She gave her speech. She didn't check out at all during her speech, which was awesome. I mean, if anything, like she is the one I always think about when I get older. That's the way I want to be.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's why I think one of the reasons why I train so hard now, I want to build as much muscle, and not only muscle but function as I can, improve myself as much as I can for as long as I can, because I feel like there's going to come a day when you start dealing with the physiological decline that exists with every living thing, and you have a lot to fall back on at that point. If you don't have a history of being strong and fit and moving well, then things get really difficult for you.
Yeah, and actually, so the picture that we're going to include even shows her she still has muscle tone in her 90s. So it's possible.
Yeah, no kidding.
So then the second link we'll include is going to be one that I used to show very early on in my class. It was basically about a study that was happening down in Australia, where they were using resistance training, specifically barbells, for these people who have osteoporosis to get stronger. And you can listen to their stories. Like these people were lifting basically body weight, basically my body weight, doing deadlifts. And, the reference, it might sound small. They are talking in kilos, so you do have to do the conversion. But these ladies are lifting, I think 135. So we're not talking the 2-3 pound dumbbells that we see in our classes.
Yeah, they're pulling real weight.
Yeah. So for me, that was always inspirational. I used to always show that video in my circuit training class, and then I kind of lost it, and I just now found it again. But since we're not meeting, I don't really show videos.
Well, it's just interesting because there are a lot of seniors out there that are competing in Olympic Games. I know at Stanford, before the pandemic, would host the Senior Olympics every year. And you'd be surprised at the good times seniors were putting down in the 100 meters and the 200, 400. They were even running the mile. And, they're competing in the hurdles, I believe. I don't know if they're doing high hurdles, but they're still doing hurdles. Mm-hmm. And they're doing all the events that you would expect athletes to do in a track event. And a lot of these people are in their 90s.
Yeah, I know. They had senior games before a functional aging summit that I also attended online while we were in the pandemic. So they met to do that outdoors. And so, yeah, the seniors are still, there are plenty who are still out there doing things.
Yeah, and there's seniors that are powerlifting. I've seen seniors that are bodybuilding. I remember when I was bodybuilding, there was one guy who's a borderline senior. His name is, I'm just going to say his name because he's very famous, Will Chang. Mm-hmm. And I've seen him, he trains at my gym once in a while, but when I first met Will Chang, I was first competing in bodybuilding. I was probably 21 years old. And I would say Will Chang was pushing 60 back then.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, he was huge. I mean, this guy was just jacked. Asian guy, he was about maybe 5'8", weighed probably dieted down, shredded at 185. He was just, he had so much muscle on him. And, he would always start his workouts with Tai Chi. Mm. And he would kind of make noise, and he just looked like this badass dude, doing his Tai Chi before. And then he'd just start throwing heavy weights around. And interestingly enough, I still see him. Obviously, he's not the same size he was then. He's in his 90s now.
Oh, wow.
Well, this is 30 years ago or more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's about 90 now, and he still works out. He's still sharp as a tack. But, I mean, he's obviously a lot smaller, but he still has muscle. He functions well, and he's still at the gym, and it inspires me.
Yeah.
And I tell him that all the time.
Aww.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. So a month ago, Scott and I were watching the movie Minari. And it's about a Korean family. And I was watching, well, of course, my favorite character is Grandma. Yeah. And so Grandma, she's sitting in front of the television watching WWE or something. But the way she was sitting there was just... She was basically sitting on the ground in a squat. And I was like, Scott, stop, pause, because I got to take a picture of this. I mean, it was just amazing how she was down on the ground in her, bottom of the squat, just watching TV and hanging out. And, I think I looked up her age. She's in her 70s. So, I mean, that's one thing that I think culturally, we just miss out on here because we haven't had to do that.
Well, I think in Western civilization, what puts us at a disadvantage in Western civilization is the chair.
Yes.
People sit in chairs way too much. Now, I'm not suggesting chairs are all bad. Yeah, when you're working, you need a chair sometimes. But obviously, people use the chair way too much. Because think about what sitting does is. When you're in that position, your hips are flexed, your knees are flexed. Now that's fine for a short period of time, but when you're there for several hours a day, guess what happens? Your hamstrings get shorter. Your quadriceps, your rect fem, which is also a hip flexor, that gets tighter too. What happens when your hamstrings get tight and your hip flexors get tight? Back pain, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And whereas in Asian culture, they just don't sit in chairs for long periods of time. They squat or they sit on the floor. And you see it all the time in restaurants. I see it in the city, Older adults that are Asian, they just move better, And it's not because of any genetic differences per se, I don't think, other than the fact that they're smaller and they probably eat less. But aside from that, they just actually sit on the floor mm-hmm. and they don't lose that ability to get up off the ground. And they squat all the time. And sometimes you'll see them, waiting to cross at a light, and they'll sit there and do a few, squats where they, static squats where they go all the way down and just sit like that. Mm-hmm. You rarely see older white folks and black folks do that. Just never.
Well, still things we could work on no matter whether we choose to do that, but it's always hard for us in class. It's hard to get. Nobody wants to squat and nobody wants to lunge. So
that's deeply problematic. And then oftentimes Bruce Utek, who manages Veterans Memorial Senior Center where we teach our classes, about once a month he has me teach for him on Zoom in the morning. It's part of a whole Trevande day of events for seniors on Zoom. And, not every time, I'd say about half the time, I try to put together an exercise routine that takes into consideration people that are on the lower level of functioning, people on the mid level of functioning, and then I throw in a few advanced exercises. And I always get complaints like, oh, I can't do that because my knees hurt. Can you do some exercises for my knees? And it's like, yeah, I can do that. And but at some point, you really do need to bear weight. And I think a lot of these seniors don't understand. It isn't just the arthritis that you're feeling. It's the pain in your muscles. It's the fascia pain that you're feeling. Things aren't functioning properly. And with a little bit of body work and some movement to lubricate your joints, you'll have a lot less pain. But it's hard to convince them of that because I'm not going to say a lot of people. There's just certain people that will immediately kind of draw the line in the sand and say, I can't bend my knees. No, I can't bend my knees and do that.
Bending your knee is part of gait.
Right? And you think, well, how do you walk? How do you function? How do you go up and down stairs? Especially downstairs. Going upstairs, you do bend your knee, but your hips, if you're doing it correctly, your hips are really one of the primary movers, your glutes. But when you go downstairs, the knees really have to bend, and your quadricep muscles have to work.
Mm-hmm.
There's
deceleration.
It's not a lot of glute and hamstring because the way the knee will tend to go over the toes, and you want to try to aim that knee so it's over the big toe and not outside of the big toe. Yeah, and if you're somebody that doesn't want to bend your knees, that movement is going to be very painful.
Yeah, the other thing is every time we teach class, ideally it's meant to be a standing class, but it never fails. 25 to 50% of the time, people are sitting.
Yeah, they just sit down.
Which has been one of the downsides of Zoom training, because when you're in your home, you're going to do whatever. If you're in a room with us, there may not be a chair nearby, and actually pretty soon, even just to come into the building to see us, you have a nice little walk, because our rooms are in the very, very back. So now there's no more, I'm going to get to the door and there will be a chair for me right there to plop down into.
Yeah, that's a good point. So any other inspirational people you want to talk about?
Yes, Ernestine Shepherd. So you might recognize her. She was a bodybuilder who started very late in life. Well, not very late. I think when she was 56, she kind of came to this realization that she wanted to do more. And so she, around that age, late 50s to 60s, she basically started to train for bodybuilding. The other thing...
Wow, bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding, yeah.
Wow.
And she looks amazing, too. At this point now, she's 79, and, she's still a personal trainer, professional model, competitive bodybuilder. So, the other thing she might... I couldn't, I didn't get a chance to look this up, but what I do remember about her was also... somebody broke into her home, and she actually she
put the smack down on the robber.
Yeah, exactly.
She put this. Yeah. So
that's the other reason, nowadays. I mean, we hear it all the time. Seniors, if you do show being vulnerable, you kind of make yourself prey. But that's why it's always cool when these people, there's the Asian lady in San Francisco. She punched the dude. I think she ended up with a black eye too, but she also put up a fight.
Yeah, come out fighting in those situations. You can use your keys. You could strike for tracheas.
She used her handbag.
Yeah, you can kick a kneecap. There's so many different ways you can defend yourself and quickly disable someone who's attacking you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my last that I'm going to include was a very sweet 77-year-old who her son basically told her, you might want to start CrossFit. Not that I recommend CrossFit for anybody, but it seemed to work for her. Like, she went in, she worked with a trainer one-on-one. So there's a difference between going to CrossFit and just, not knowing how to do the exercises and trying to follow along. But she actually worked with a trainer one-on-one in a CrossFit gym. And
wow.
She had like her laundry list of every joint that had been replaced or partially replaced. I hear these all the time, the whole list that they give you of everything that doesn't work, but her story was super inspirational. and the very, well, I'm just going to say it. You can watch the video, but basically after she joins the CrossFit gym for 10 months and is doing very well, her husband then wants to join too, and he was the one who always drove her to the gym, but unfortunately he did not make it to his first CrossFit session.
Oh yeah, we saw that
Yeah.
that video. Yeah, that was really sad, but she's still doing really well.
Yeah, she is, and the good part, she's like, she has a community. I mean, as long as we can keep the gyms open, my guess is this gym will be open and her community will be there for her.
Now, was that in Oakland?
No, I want to say it was in Brooklyn.
Oh, in Brooklyn. That's right. It was the East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah.
You forget, not everyone has a strong accent.
Oh.
Yeah, you sort of think if he's from Brooklyn, he's going to have an accent. Get in the car, huh?
Yeah. No, I want to say she was East Coast. I'm not positive about, but for some reason I feel like that's what they said.
That's why I was always tripped out when we went to Houston, Texas, and so few people have a twangy accent there.
Oh, yeah.
I figured someone would be like, say something like, y'all come back now, you hear? Y'all going over there,
You do get that occasionally.
Herschel Walker there. I didn't get hardly any of that. I was kind of disappointed at first.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, down in Texas, they don't mess around either. The good part is, I've been to a gym. I used to go to a kettlebell gym, and that was the interesting part. I joined, just because I'd always done kettlebells. I walked in there, and I was actually very surprised by the makeup of the group. Everybody was probably at least late 50s, somewhere in their 60s. I mean, yeah, sure, plenty of them had knee wraps, but they would still go after it. No complaints. I never heard a complaint, not one complaint during the whole entire class.
Well, I want to say one thing. So anytime you're going to any training gym like that, think about what type of senior it would take to go into a place like that. Most seniors just aren't going to do that. And I really like that there are seniors out there that will go to a gym like that and not be intimidated, not think, oh, I can't do it. You know what I mean? It's just amazing. I wish we can get a lot of our people to embrace that kind of attitude and try things that they're not, 100% sure about. Because I'll tell you this, as a trainer, as any type of strength coach and teacher, I am never going to have any of my clients or students attempt anything that I don't think they're capable of.
Oh, yeah.
There's a progression to everything that we do.
Yeah. That's the thing. First, we always try to teach technique more than anything else. So it's up to the individual to show that they've learned the technique, that they know how to take care of themselves if things don't go right. Otherwise, yeah, we're using a yoga block if we have to.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You could use a yoga block for so many different things, especially if you're doing a squat or something, like a sit stand. You could put something there to limit how far down you go. Mm-hmm. If you're doing a weighted leg lift, whatever it may be, yoga blocks come in really handy for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any other inspirational seniors you want to talk about?
Oh no, that 77-year-old, she I think takes the cake. I'd never seen this video before. I see a lot of these videos throughout my my social media flipping.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, I did forget one.
Who's that?
Forgot the lady. So in one of the groups that I teach online in the East Coast, somebody posted a video. I want to say she's early 90s. She's a personal trainer in Japan. Did you watch that video at all?
I don't think I saw that one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so that lady, she can literally sit and straddle and bring her whole torso down to the floor at 90 something.
Jeez Louise, I don't think I could do that now.
Yeah, well, I still strive for it. That's how I start our evening class. Yeah. And I know everybody's like, why are we doing this straddle? But basically, she can do pancake, which is what we...
Oh, you mean the 90-90?
No.
Where straddle. One leg's forward and one leg's back. I don't know what straddle is.
Straddle is your both feet are out. So basically a seated split.
Yeah.
And then she folds over
Oh, I see. She brings her torso forward.
to the
Gotcha,
ground.
Yeah.
Pancake is what it's called.
Yeah, okay.
You know, that's how I start evening class.
Yeah, I start with legs apart too. I didn't know that was the term straddle. Okay. Yeah.
So, she does it like it's nothing. She just like, okay, let me get into position. And next thing you know, you see her torso go straight down. And, you know, she weight trains. So in the video, you'll see she's got her barbell and she's doing her sumo squats at 90. Well, she's 90. Not, I don't know how much weight is on that bar. I don't think it's technically that much because she doesn't need a squat rack. Because that's how I put a bar on my back, is with a squat rack.
Oh yeah, I've seen some people press the bar over their head and then lower it down on their traps or just beneath the traps. Yeah.
My point is that I don't think that bar can be that much for her to get into position without a squat rack.
That's interesting.
But nonetheless, she still uses the bar to do her sumo squats. So yeah, she was pretty amazing actually to watch too. So yeah, still has that hip mobility. If she can do pancake, she's got some hip mobility because your body's not going to let you drop your torso down to the ground otherwise.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, she can definitely, she has the space inside of her hips to do that. So so I guess that's
Well, I'd like to say one thing. I do have a client that's 68 years old. I'm just going to say her first name. Her name's Maureen. She's a full-time CPA, I believe you call it, an accountant. And I've been working with her since 2008. And I train her 3 times a week. And she, sometimes she complains, but she's always game for what I want her to do. And it's amazing, she's almost 70 now. I believe she's 68, and she doesn't look her age at all. In fact, you can see her husband starting to really show his age, and she's looking younger and younger.
I know the last time we checked her, like I want to say she has more muscle than me.
Yeah, it's possible, sure. I mean,
she's taller than me. Slightly taller than me.
Taller, and I do have her lifting a lot. That is true.
Yeah.
But we've been doing a lot more mobility lately since, the pandemic. She works from home now, and she spends too much time sitting. I try to get her to discipline herself to get up, walk a little bit, do some squats, then go back to her desk.
Yeah.
Every hour. But I think when she gets in the zone, she's just like not going to break that.
Yeah.
So any other seniors you want to...
No, those are all mine. I would say Elaine Lalanne's my number one, just because I've actually seen her move. I've watched her interact with people, so I have pretty firsthand enough knowledge to know like 90's definitely possible, and to be coherent, and it's possible to still be a better mover than people in their 30s. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. We've seen some pretty bad movers in their 30s.
Yeah. But, I'm just saying, we've even seen my dad do a roll in his bed just to get around you.
Yeah.
And that's somebody he is my height and you're 6 feet. So it's a good foot over both of us. And he just rolls in his bed around you like it's no big deal. Now, he doesn't do that now, but...
He did do it. I remember
his
that.
90s.
I remember that. It was like a slow motion shoulder roll.
Yep.
Impressive. Okay, so one thing before, is there anything else you want to add? Okay, so one other thing I want to mention before we conclude things on this podcast, there's been some good news. California, 30.3 infections per 100,000. I believe our infection rate now from testing is in the 3s. We are the lowest case per capita of COVID in the whole nation. So pretty excited about that, very optimistic. My optimism, however, though, sometimes gets tempered when I listen to Dr. Osterholm. We listen to his podcast weekly, and he gives us updates on COVID, not just in the United States, but all over the world, and what his take is on things, and also what he doesn't know, which is great. It's great to hear him say there are patterns and things that are happening that I can't explain. And so he was talking about India and how India had a really low infection rate until recently. And that's why he's warning Californians not to get too confident. So what my take-home message for that is, keep doing what you're doing. Keep wearing your mask. Get vaccinated if you haven't gotten vaccinated. I'm excited to announce that on the 12th, I'll be receiving my second dose of Moderna. You're going to be receiving it on what, the 11th?
Oh, no, mine was originally the 11th, but I had to move it because I coached the East Coast ladies on the following day, and I didn't want to take a chance.
Okay, so yours is on the 12th?
No, it's the end of the week.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's up a week ahead early. Okay,
No,
that's fine.
it's the 14th.
Okay, sounds good.
Middle of the month.
Yeah, exciting. We're going to be fully vaccinated, and I'll say everyone in our families are going to be completely vaccinated. I believe your father's vaccinated.
Yeah, I'm going to go see my dad.
Yeah, we'll be able to actually go in the clinic and not look at him through a window.
Well, we still have to make sure we get tested. I got to double check what the requirements are.
Yeah.
Because things are always changing. There's nothing, you can't count on anything being the way it was a week ago. So.
Yeah, that is true. Well, anyway, I'm optimistic. You should be optimistic too. I'll say the gym's opened 10 weeks ago, and I've been training for 9 weeks straight, and I feel fantastic. Excited for that. I'm going to train another 2 weeks straight, and then I'm going to take a week off. I do that every 12th week. I take off when I'm actually training consistently, meaning lifting heavy weight consistently. And it's been over a year since I've been on that pattern. Between the surgeries and between COVID and not being able to go to a gym, it's been a great feeling. So everybody stay diligent. Wear your mask, when you're indoors. If you're outdoors, keep your mask nearby. If you're going to talk to somebody that maybe hasn't been vaccinated, or maybe you're just not quite sure if it's somebody you're not living with, or what they're doing, wear your mask. Just keep it around your neck. Keep it in your pocket. Wherever you can put it on. And then, of course, when you go indoors, you should always have it on. We're doing good. We just got a little bit longer to go. I believe half our state's been vaccinated at least once.
What's weird is nobody's really talked about the booster.
Oh, I've heard some people talk about boosters.
No, but I'm saying like I can't remember, the group A would have gotten theirs a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So at what point do they get to go back and...
Oh, I've already heard somebody talk about that. I believe... was it Fauci? Somebody was saying in another 6 months they're probably going to have a booster for people.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying that doesn't seem to be on people's schedule at the moment.
Oh yes, because you're going to have to do this again, and and it's going to be another big cluster of people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to have to start planning for the booster too. But I think what everyone's focused on is just getting everybody vaccinated, right? Because there's still a lot of people out there that haven't been vaccinated.
Yes.
So, these vaccines, they work. They've reinstalled the Johnson & Johnson's. And like we've mentioned before, it was 6 people that got blood clots out of 7 million injections. And all of them were younger, between 18 and 48. They were female. They had low hematocrit levels. And if you're concerned about any of this, just get a blood test. You'll find out if your hematocrit level's low. And but don't be afraid to get the J&J. If it's available to you and that's what you have access to, get it. You stand a much higher chance of a fatality from, or a major problem from COVID than you are this vaccination. Yeah. So, all right, everyone. Anything else you want to add, Say?
Nope.
All right, everyone. We'll be seeing you soon. Take care. Have a good week. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done that yet. And also, if you understand sharing, please share it on social media. Spread the word. We're always trying to build our podcast to a wider audience. All right? Thank you, everyone, and take care.
See you later.
Bye-bye.